The fastest eater in the animal kingdom is not a falcon, a shark, or anything built for the chase. It is a hamster-sized mole that can barely tell day from night, working wet black soil in eastern North America. And the organ that makes it the fastest is the strangest face in the mammal world. The star-nosed mole, Condylura cristata, lives in the soggy lowlands of Canada and the eastern United States, swamp edges, stream banks, the margins of ponds, wherever the ground is soft enough to tunnel and wet enough to be full of worms. Most of it is standard mole. Shoulders like a wedge of muscle, velvet fur that lies flat whichever way it is stroked, so the animal can reverse in its own tunnel, and eyes reduced to dots that register light and little else. And then, around the nostrils, the exception, a ring of 22 pink tentacles of bare skin, 11 matched pairs, in constant motion, the star. The star is not a nose in the smelling sense, and it is not a hand, though early naturalists guessed both. It is better understood as an eye made of touch. Its skin is packed with sensory structures found nowhere else, Eimer's organs, by the tens of thousands, fed by a bundle of nerve fibers that outnumbers anything comparable in a human hand, all of it crowded onto an organ smaller than a fingertip. As the mole digs, it presses the star against the floor and walls of its tunnel many times a second, tap, 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 sampling the dark the way a flashlight sweeps a room. And buried in the star's design is the giveaway. One small pair of tentacles, front and center, has the finest resolution of all, and when the outer tentacles brush something interesting, the star flicks, snapping that high-resolution pair onto the target for close reading. Vision scientists have a word for exactly this arrangement, a fovea. The eye's trick of pointing its sharpest spot at whatever matters has been rebuilt here, in skin, for a world without light. Then there is the speed, which is the part that earned the record books. Touch, identify, decide, swallow. Researchers filming the sequence with high-speed cameras measured handling times in fractions of a second, identification and consumption together in around a quarter of a second at typical pace, faster still at the record, quicker than the eye watching the film can follow, and quicker than any other animal eats anything. The bottleneck is not the body. At these timescales, the mole's limit is its own brain, the moments the nervous system needs to register touch and pass a verdict. The star-nosed mole eats at approximately the speed of thought, in the most literal sense available to biology. Why build all this to catch worms? Because of an accountant's problem. Soil prey comes in all sizes, and most of it is tiny, fragments of worm, soft insect larvae barely worth a mouthful. For an ordinary predator, prey that small costs more time to handle than its calories repay, so it goes uneaten. But shrink the handling time towards zero and the equation flips. Suddenly everything is profitable, down to the smallest scrap, and the mole can sweep a tunnel like a vacuum line, taking the little prey its competitors must ignore. The star is not extravagance. It is the instrument that makes small food pay. The animal has one more distinction, and it is the kind that sounds invented. The star-nosed mole is the only mole that swims. It forages on pond bottoms, and underwater, where smelling should be impossible for an air breather, it smells anyway. Filmed in experiment, the mole exhales small bubbles of air onto an object, lets the bubble touch it, and inhales the bubble back, carrying the object's scent to its nose. It blows a question and breathes in the answer, several times a second, in cold black water. Set this beside the naked mole rat of the last episode, and the ark's argument comes into focus. Underground, the surface senses are not handicapped, they are renegotiated. Light goes, and in its place evolution builds sight out of whatever channel still works. Skin, in this case, tuned until it carries a fovea and outruns every eye in the kingdom. At the edge of a dark pond, a ripple crosses the surface, and ahead of the body that makes it travels the star, 22 fingers of bare skin, wide open, reading the water.